everybody, Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Well, welcome, and we're glad you're here. Go for it.
Great. Well, thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be back with the Democrats of Greater Tucson to talk about our school district. I was knocking on a door, was it not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and one of the persons I knocked on the door was talking to them briefly, and they're like, the most important races is president and school board on that ballot. And I will agree with that person, even if you don't agree with that. Some of the most important races are really those local races when we elect people working on issues here locally in Tucson that really impact what's going on, that impacts our schools, our education, and the next generation of Tucsonans. And so really proud to be elected in 2020 and serving these last 4 years, and excited to be running again for re-election this next cycle here come November. I want to thank all of you. I'm assuming that all of you voted in favor of our bond last year. And when I was back before GDT, I think earlier this year, I thanked you, and I'm going to thank you again because we're seeing the fruits of that labor, of all of your hard work advocating for the bond last year, and of course, voting in favor of that bond. We had a 60% vote yes on the bond last November, which is, we lost 60-40 in 2017. So it was a complete flip of the vote. And it really shows how much our community and how much of your work really advocating with your neighbors makes such a difference in supporting our public schools. And because of that bond vote last year, we're able to finally upgrade HVAC systems around TUSD. We still hear that a lot of problems this past school year, starting a month and a half ago, of different schools that had a lot of struggles with their HVAC systems. And I believe we've upgraded 8, and we have 4 more of our schools being upgraded now through fall break, and we're going to be doing more into next year as well. And so thanks to your advocacy and your support of our schools, we have $480 million coming to us over the next decade to upgrade all of our HVAC systems, to improve security and safety around all of our campuses. We have new fencing going up at our schools. Sam Hughes is getting new fencing over fall break, and they've had a couple of outside elements come onto their campus over the last few years. We have new security locks that we'll have new camera systems and other things, thanks to safety and security upgrades that we can do through the bond. We're going to upgrade our fleet of vehicles as well. And thanks to the bond, we have over $20 million of the bond going towards transportation. And we were able to approve electric buses for the first time. And we have this trial that we're going to do. We're doing a pilot project with electric buses. We purchased 10 buses. We have infrastructure for 20. And because of the EPA grants, TEP grants, and other grants, the 10 buses and the infrastructure combined are going to cost less than 10 diesel vehicles that we could have purchased otherwise. And that doesn't even include the cost savings from not having to use all of the diesel and fueling costs. And so we're really excited to have this pilot project, thanks to you and the bond and the advocacy that you all do on climate mitigation. So a lot of good things thanks to the bond. And I know we'll have most of the time for questions and answers in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about some of the things I'm most proud of these last couple of years on the school board. We've really addressed academic achievement in our students, and there's so much more work left to be done. We have a lot of areas of improvement on improving proficiency with language, with math, and reading and writing. But we made enormous strides, and I really give it up to all of our teachers and educators all around our district that have worked with our kids in this post-pandemic world, and the programs that we put in place that pull out students that are struggling to give small group instruction. Now, I've been to these schools. I was at Cabot Elementary School last year and saw the RTI teacher, the response intervention teacher, working one-on-one with a student on helping her work on her language skills and her reading skills. And these programs, they happen in all of our schools now, nearly all of our schools all around the TUSD, our 88 schools that we have, that are working with small groups of students that are really helping them on growth and achievement, on language and math, which is super important. And because of that, our school letter grades today are better than they were 5 years ago before the pandemic. We have no F schools for 2 years in a row. I think we're down to just 4 D schools. Almost 2/3 of our schools, when we have the final report that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, about 2/3 of our schools are rated A and B, which is a huge improvement from where we were just a few years ago, and especially coming out of the pandemic. And so really proud of our work with our students, proud of our work with teachers and staff. We hit a peak of teacher vacancies coming out of the pandemic, which is down back to consistent levels to what they were before the pandemic. A lot of it is supporting our teachers and staff with salaries and benefits and working conditions. You know, we listened to our teachers and staff, and we approved a new code of conduct that really helped address some of the concerns that I was hearing from teachers and principals all around our district. And that was last year, which I think will really make an impact for the tools that our teachers and principals need to help better manage their classrooms. And in our next meeting next week, and this is really thankful to the TEA, the Tucson Education Association, our union, for proposing this, but we're going to be approving, if we get a majority vote, which I think we will, the district's first FMLA policy for parental leave, 12 weeks of paid parental leave. If this passes as a second read, it passed unanimously from a first read. If this passes in a second read next week, we will be the only district, I believe, in Southern Arizona and the biggest district in the state of Arizona that has 12 weeks of paid family leave for all of our employees when they have a child or adopt a child. And that's going to be huge for young families. And, you know, I'm speaking amongst Democrats here. You know, I'm very much of the mind where family values isn't about hate, it's about how you support families. And this is a strong way that our community can support a lot of young families that are growing in our community here. And so I'm really excited to support our FMLA, our 12 weeks of paid family leave for all of our employees. And one thing that I stood up at the last meeting when we covered this was we had a provision in this policy in the paid parental leave that if we had 2 employees, 2 parents that were both employed by TUSD, they would have a max of 12 weeks. And we know that from European studies, from other studies all around the world, that when parents have to choose and pick and choose who's going to have the leave, there's always almost always a mother that's going to take that leave. And as a father who had the opportunity to take a lot of leave when my own children were born, and a very engaged father in my children's upbringing, it was important to me to make sure that we value dads as well in terms of upbringing of our children. And so I propose removing that provision in there so that if we have 2 parents that are both employed by TUSD, each of them could take 12 weeks. And so in most cases, a mother and father, both of them would get 12 weeks, and the father would get his 12 weeks as well to be able to take with his children as they should. We should have engaged fathers as much as engaged mothers with our kids. So these are some of the things that I'm really proud of our work on the district, and it wouldn't be possible without your advocacy, without your work, without all the things that we're all doing together as Democrats here in Tucson. And so back in, I believe it was April, TUSD had a first read, and we passed a first read for a really comprehensive climate action plan, which would help both on mitigation as well as resiliency. This was led by the students. The Arizona Youth Climate Coalition reached out to us the summer of 2023. We waited for the bond to see what was going on. We were going to pass a bond and be able to have some funding for infrastructure. And thanks to the bond passing, we do. We're upgrading our HVACs, we're doing our transportation, we're doing a lot of other upgrades in our schools and our facilities. So we had a proposal which passed in a first read in April, which is a very comprehensive climate action plan. And if passed in a second read next month, it will be one of the most comprehensive climate action plans in all school districts in the entire nation. This addresses school buildings, this addresses our utilities, this addresses our food services. It goes up and down everything that we do as a school district to do our part to really address climate change and really work on reducing our carbon footprint. And so we hope that this passes in the second read come next month. So please be involved and engaged. We need folks to really advocate for our part that we can do for the next generation. We're working on teaching and educating the next generation. We need to make sure that the planet is ready for the next generation and sustainable for them as well.
Okay, so first question, Susie Anderson. Go.
Lillian Fox was ahead of me.
Oh, okay. Lillian?
Okay. I'm surprised, Ravi, that you're claiming the district is doing so well academically. The Department of Education report cards show that only 28% of TUSD students are proficient in English language arts, and only 21% are proficient in math. And we are the next to the worst school district. We're not the school district with the greatest poverty. Flowing Wells has more poverty, and they're a majority minority just like we are, and they beat us. Amphi also is majority minority. They also beat us by a long shot. We've got to do something about the academics. What we're doing is not working. Now, I really do have a question. The budget for this fiscal school year is 2.5 months late. I did a Freedom of Information request, and they told me a month ago that they weren't done yet. Sadie Shaw has asked for a copy of the budget book, whether it's done or not. She also doesn't have a copy. And I talked to them last week. There's still no sight that I'm going to get a copy. So when are we going to actually get to see a copy of the budget for this school year to find out where the money's going?
I appreciate it, Lillian. You know, there's a lot of, I always make that caveat whenever I talk about academic achievement. There's a lot of work left to be done. I even mentioned proficiency is something we're working on. We're not going to change proficiency overnight, but we have enormous growth amongst our students. And again, a lot of our school letter grades right now are based on the growth. And we've had a lot of programs that come in. We've had the pull-out programs, small group instruction. We are addressing some of the evidence-based ways to really address language and math acquisition. Small group instruction, evidence-based curriculum, and teacher training programs are some of the best ways that we can do to really address this need. And we have the evidence-based curriculum. We've approved a lot of curriculum growth over the last couple of years. I think we've done more curriculum changes and approvals over the last 2 years than in the previous 10 years when it comes to social science, English language arts, and others. And I see it with my own children who are in the schools, and I see the new work they're doing, upgraded curriculums that they're working with, which is amazing. We have the CSPs, which are curriculum service providers in most of our schools now, and they are working on making sure that the teachers are trained properly, that they're working one-on-one with some teachers that are struggling, and really helping support the teachers be most effective in their classroom management. We also have the 4 days of professional development that we have each year that we approved. I believe this is now our 3rd or 4th year that we have teacher development days. So 4 days throughout the year, the teachers are getting additional academic training to really hone in on their skills and be more effective in classroom management. We have MTSS coordinators in almost every in almost every school now that are working with students that are struggling, that are working with students that need some additional resources and help to help them get back on the right path. And so we've seen enormous growth over the last couple of years, and we're working on proficiency over time. That's going to hopefully improve as the growth improves. Flowing Wells is a great sister district that we can look at. And one thing that Flowing Wells has that we don't have is an override. They have higher teacher salaries than we do because they have a voter-approved override that we don't have. And again, the bond that we approved last year, that you all voted for last year, can only be used for facilities capital. It can't be used for teacher salaries. It can't be used for teaching positions. And so, we need to really look and see how we can work as a community to match with some of the other schools at Flowing Wells, Vail, and other schools you mentioned, Lillian, and see if we can keep some of these programs. Because my concern is that, we are on a deficit budget right now, and that once we go through all of our carry forward, that all of our positions that are working directly with students might have to go away. It might have to be cut if we're not able to find ways to manage the budget or go back to the voters for an override in future years. And that'll be really unfortunate if these programs go away, because the data is showing, the growth is showing that they're making a huge impact for our students. And so, again, as a family physician, for me, my profession is all about evidence-based practice. We talk evidence-based as a term that we use all the time when we are managing patients. And I'm glad we've been able to bring into our school district some of that same vernacular in terms of talking about what are the evidence-based ways that really impact student achievement and growth. And that is going to be, again, the small group instruction, evidence-based curriculum, and well-trained teachers. Other things that we've done is really address behavioral health for our students. We know that our students that are struggling with depression, with anxiety, with mental illness, with addiction, they're not ready to learn. They're not going to be, no matter what we do in the schools, they're not going to be ready to learn if they're really afflicted with some of those conditions. I led the process to start a substance abuse task force that we did after we received a settlement from Juul and Altria, the makers of the vape products. The TUSD was one of the lead plaintiffs in that lawsuit, and we received almost $9 million of settlement funds that we'll be receiving. And instead of having that squandered or go to waste or go back to the general coffers, I really wanted that to be used for mental health and addiction management for our students, and really hold true to what the settlement and the lawsuit was for. And so this task force came together, made up of district leadership, as well as community members and leaders in addiction medicine, adolescent medicine, and other fields that work directly with patients in our community. And they came up with an amazing proposal that is going to work with community health workers and matching folks in our school system that are struggling with these issues with community liaisons and other folks, and bring in a curriculum to really address some of this into our district. And so that, along with approving more counselors and behavioralists, thanks to our COVID relief money, and then being able to continue funding that by using the Medicaid funding that we have available that we're billing out, and using that for some of our healthcare staff, that we can have enough money left over to keep those counselors and behavioral positions in place. I think all that together is going to continue the growth process over the years, which will eventually help really improve the proficiency. So again, a lot of work left to be done on growth. There's no banner behind me saying victory or whatever the banner that Bush did 20 years ago that we've won. There's a lot of work left to be done in academic achievement. I think we've made enormous strides with the resources that we have, and we've used them in some good ways.
I was
learned a lot the last
trying to
couple of years.
interrupt you, and you started to talk about the budget. My question was about the budget. It's 2.5 months late.
Yeah. The budget book is hopefully get posted soon. I'm not sure where Ricky is on that, our chief financial officer. One thing that I pay more attention to is our budget projections. And that's something that we've implemented since I've been on the board, which is a 5-year projection of every major decision that we have. We see, the governing board sees that on a regular basis, and we are able to see projections on the revenue coming in due to our students and enrollment, as well as all of the money going out with things that we've already committed to, and any new processes we have, whether it's pay raises, whether it's keeping these positions or that position, or changing anything in the way we manage our schools. And that's been really important to me, to be able to see what those decisions look like for not just this year coming up and what the cost is today, but what the cost is going to be for the next 5 years to our district, and what we have to maybe give up if we're going to be making these decisions. And that's been really important to me, to really help make decisions as a governing board member.
In the history of TUSD, the board has never, ever approved the budget without seeing the budget. The budget was approved months ago. Even though it wasn't available, it's still not available. And that's shocking.
Okay, we've got Linda Leatherman up. Linda?
Mine really isn't a question. I was at a meeting. I was at the meeting where the teachers made the request for the paid parental leave. And I am so excited to hear that that is actually now something that is available to all the staff.
It will be soon. Yeah, we're going to pass it in a second read, most likely on next week, unless we aren't able to get a majority vote. But I think we're going to get a majority vote next week to pass the leave. And it really came in from the teachers directly. They came to our governing board meeting to call to audience a number of people that have been affected with this issue over the last couple of years. This was back in, I think, in the spring. And this is a proposal that was led by the TEA, and I'm really proud of TEA for bringing this proposal to us for paid parental leave. And this is going to make a huge difference, I think, on recruitment and retention of our teachers, especially our young staff, as well as doing what's right for valuing families and really, really promoting family values.
And the other comment that I wanted to make, I've worked with Utterback School off and on for a couple of years now. We're working on a special project called Digital Futures. And I was so impressed when I learned about Avid and what Taranika Sanders is doing with Utterback. She's just been such a go-getter and such a dynamic principal that she has really energized so many of those programs we're just really pleased to have the opportunity to work with Utterback. Thank you.
Linda, I'll add your shout out to Utterback. That's a big gem in our TUSD right now. I had a chance to visit Utterback just a week or two ago, actually, and they invited me to see their esports facilities. There's a new esports facility that's doing like cybersecurity training and other kinds of training for our students and curriculum. But the caveat is really engaging, because there is all shrouded in like this whole curriculum with like actual esports, with different gaming and other kinds of video things. And this engages students. They have during school curriculum and after school programming to really help reduce absenteeism and improve student engagement. So I'm really excited that the Utterback is experimenting with this great program on esports.
Yes.
I think it's going to be in front of our governing board to approve a curriculum during the next meeting next week as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thanks,
Thank
Linda.
Okay, Susie Anderson.
Hi, Dr. Shaw. So good to see you and listen to you. I am a reading seed coach from Literacy Connects and work at Monzo. I know the COVID year, almost 2 years, were devastating to kids' education. Do you have any plans if something like this should occur again? How do you plan to keep the kids engaged? And can you use other outside resources like Reading Seed to deliver one-on-one, even if it's on Zoom?
Well, thank you, Susie. And it was a pleasure when it was a couple of years ago I was at Monzo and you were there doing your work there. So we really appreciate your work with our students. And our community partnerships are some of the really strengths of TUSD. We work with a lot of organizations like Literacy Connects, Higher Ground, and other organizations around our community to really address family engagement, address small group instruction, and work with our students. And so that's a big gem. And thank you, Susie, for your work on that. My oldest daughter, I believe she was a second grader during the pandemic shutdown year. And we're still seeing the effects of that all these years later, now that she's a seventh grader. And that was not a great time. And, I think we learned a lot of healthcare lessons. And I think the CDC learned a lot from those years. And, it was really working with the Department of Health and working with others to make sure we address any kind of outbreaks in the most effective way. We have a lot of programs in place. We have 2 of them now that came out of the pandemic, which is our own school, is a separate school now that's all online. So I think we're the only district in Southern Arizona that has its own permanent online school with its own principal and it's a K-12 school and own work. And so that one is something that we can always expand up and down based on needs if there's any outbreaks or other things. But I wouldn't be in favor of any school closures at this point. But I think working with our Department of Health and working with the CDC to make sure we put in, I'm going to use evidence-based again, but put in the evidence-based public health things to really improve outcomes and work with our students directly. And we have a great director of healthcare in our district, Joseph Gaw. He's a nurse by trade. He's a Dr. Gaw. He's a doctorate. He's a nurse by trade. And so we have someone that, I trust to work with our internal task force on, what's the word we use? I think communicable disease task force that we put together, made up of internal and external stakeholders that are working and figuring out ways to address outbreaks, whether it be a measles outbreak or whether it be an Mpox outbreak or some other outbreak that happens in our schools, and how to make sure we address that in the most effective way to value instructional time as well as keep everyone safe. So we've learned a lot from the crisis that I don't think anybody in the world was prepared for. I wasn't on this governing board when we started the COVID crisis, unfortunately. But I think we did what we could to make the public health needs happen, and we have some structures in place to really address things in the future.
Okay, Lucy.
Thank you. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Lucy. Thanks for being here.
Of course. So I know when the charter school started, they just, took so many of our students, and then we got them back. We got a lot of them back. So I was just curious, the charter situation now within the TUSD boundaries, because there were so many that it really created a problem with our loss of enrollment. So what is the situation now with charter schools in the TUSD boundaries and the effect that it has had on our enrollment?
Yeah, there's a lot of attacks on TUSD enrollment, to be blunt, you know, whether it's the charter schools, whether it's the ESA vouchers, which I think a lot of our party has really stood against, and hopefully we get a majority if we can flip LD 17 and really work to pull down some of that program so that we can have really have the accountability of all the funding going towards education and not have our taxpayer dollars going towards curriculum of flat earth and other kinds of things that we see on media right now that is happening. You know, I think I'm going to answer the question more kind of how we're addressing enrollment and how we should be addressing enrollment in our districts. You know, we're doing some things differently now than we have been in the past. I think we have a new communications director who's been with us for 1.5 years now, and she's really taking the bull by the horns in terms of having a website, a landing page for prospective parents. We have a whole marketing campaign that we hadn't had before to really talk about TUSD and really mirror some of the work that our charter school competitors are doing in terms of trying to draw some parents back into TUSD. And they have a landing page and they really work based on their needs and their geography and what are the options for the parents. Really marketing those A and B grades. Almost every single school, about 2/3 of our schools are A and B graded from the state ADE. And so we need to market that. And I would go further. I want to do some more local geolocating marketing. You know, if you live on the cusp of Foothills on the north side and close to Davidson Elementary School, they're now a K-6 model, which is a new model, so we'll talk about in a second. And how do we market that to the folks just north of River that are still part of TUSD, but oftentimes send their kids to Cap Foothills schools? Hey, we have this new model, come with us, and here's why Davidson's great, or here's why, X, Y, and Z school, here's the programs, and market to the parents that surround that school area. So I think doing some more targeted marketing and market our individual schools, because when I see it on my own social media as a parent, I'm the target market for all these charter schools. When I see they're not marketing, all these random schools. They're marketing, here's, this is, one school, school A, school B, that's a charter school. Here's why you should choose us. And I think we need to do some of the same. Like you live by Lineweaver, you live by Hollinger, you live by this school. Here's a bilingual program. Here's, what we offer that other schools don't offer. Here's a mariachi program. And I think we can market a lot better than we're doing right now. So I really want to move into a really more high-tech marketing scheme. I think the other piece is going to be more innovation and making sure that we give the parents and the students what they really need. I mentioned the K-6 model. So we're doing a pilot project right now in 10 schools that used to be K-5 and they're now K-6. And we're seeing that helps mitigate some of the enrollment loss into middle school by keeping the families there for 1 more year into 6th grade. And then also there's evidence that might help academic achievement in terms of keeping the kids into their elementary program for 1 more year before they go to middle school. And so we'll see how that affects enrollment. I think, looking at the data, potentially expanding that, looking at our CTE programs and other kinds of programs that really help train students for the jobs of today and tomorrow is going to be really important on really innovation. And then the last piece is going to be right sizing our schools, making sure we look at, where our schools are located, look at, where the market is growing and not growing, and figure out how to make some changes, which are going to be some tough decisions in the second term if I have that opportunity.
Okay, good question, good answer. Thank you. Mike, do you have any questions?
Yeah, there is a question that was direct message to me, so I don't know if the person wants to be identified, but one of our members wants to know, what is the status of Tucson's EDI department, also known as DEI, or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? Apparently, she's under the impression that TUSD administration has been trying to eliminate this department, and she'd like to know what's going on.
A great question. I think it's a lot of there's a really bad communication about what's going on with our EDI services. And most of and if you're following education, is that 2024, so 2 years ago, we achieved unitary status, and we were officially out of court supervision. There's currently some appeals going on, which was held by the 8th Circuit Court in December, that we're still waiting for the final ruling. 9th Circuit back in December. But we anticipate that's going to be in our favor. So we're no longer under court supervision for our desegregation program. So what does that mean? That means that we don't have special masters in Baltimore or outside agents or courts looking at the work that we're doing as an organization, but we really have our governing board, then our voter elected governing board being the leaders of our EDI work. It wasn't about that everything is done, that we achieved complete parity amongst brown and Black students compared to our white and Asian students. That's not what the decision was, but that we were making strides, and we have a governing board and a superintendent that the decisions now lay on in terms of how we address disparities and other work as a district. And so I think that's important to keep in mind in terms of what we're doing as an organization. And our EDI department is huge. The work that we're doing on equity, diversity, and inclusion is pretty vast as an organization. We have as many as 100 staff members that are working in some aspect of equity, diversity, and inclusion, whether it's be our our 4 student services departments. We have a very strong Mexican American Student Services, African American Student Services, Native American Student Services, and Asian and Pacific Islander and Refugee Student Services departments. We have 4 strong student services departments that are working directly with minority students and helping them and their families succeed in our community here. We have a lot of people working on culturally responsive curriculum that's working to make sure that our curriculum really reflects our students. And for someone who comes from a different background, my parents immigrated here from India. I was born and raised in the Chicago area. And I still remember when I was in high school, I did an independent study with my English teacher on Indian literature, and seeing myself reflected in the books and the materials that we were reading. One of my favorite authors, her name was Kamala Markandeya, which mirrors our hopefully future president's name as well. The scene that was really important to me as a young adolescent growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. And so I definitely have a lot of strong favor when it comes to making sure that our curriculum is really responsive to the needs of our diverse community that we have here in the student body. We have a lot of work. We have our magnet program. We have a lot of curriculum programs and other programs that we have under the EDI umbrella. So the work of addressing transportation is another big piece of it. Our magnet programs, our bilingual programs that we have throughout the district. And so even though the court supervision is over, the work of addressing disparities, the work of really being the district we need to be for the majority minority student population that we have is really important to continue. And I hope we continue electing governing board members that are going to really address disparities and recognize how that is important for our role to really make an impact, and continue having a very strong EDI department with the nearly 100 staff members we have around our district working in some element of equity, diversity, and inclusivity.
Okay. And
Barbara Warren has a question in the chat.
yeah.
She would like to know whether you've been able to get your questions answered about issues of extreme heat for children.
Right. I mentioned early on in my introduction, HVAC continues to be a problem in the district. I know we tried to have a bond passed in 2017 that was going to address a lot of our HVAC needs, and that didn't pass, unfortunately. But we were really blessed to have the bond passed this year. So now, or last year, excuse me, so which is now implemented this year. We have a bond oversight committee. They're an official governing board meeting that's open to the public, so you're able to go to our website and find out when future meetings are and take part in that, and do call to the audience and be involved in that process as well. A lot of the first we spent I think almost a fourth of our money already of our $480 million package, or close to that. And I'm sure Lillian probably has more details than I do on that number. But we spent a lot of money already, and most of it, a majority of it, I believe, or plurality at least, has gone towards HVAC systems. And so we've approved a lot of new HVAC systems around our district. And I hope over the next year or two, we're going to prioritize making sure we continue addressing HVAC systems and really bring our schools up. Our average age of our schools are over 50 years old. That's the average age. And a lot of our HVAC systems are a generation or two old. And we're piecing them together with sometimes with duct tape. I don't think that's actually true, but I'm just being facetious. But we're holding them together, and we have an amazing HVAC team that's grown over the last couple of years. a lot of work that they're doing, which is amazing on the operations side. But we are very thankful to all of you for supporting the bond package last year so that we can finally get into those schools and completely redo the whole HVAC system in a lot of our schools, if not almost all of them.
And finally, I do have a question of my own. With Governor Walz's nomination as the vice president, we're hearing a lot of buzz around school nutrition programs, free lunch, free breakfast. And I was wondering if we can get your perspective as a physician about the importance of such programs and how we might get such a thing here in Arizona in general and TUSD in particular.
Yeah, as a family physician, of course, nutrition is super important. I was delivering babies up until a couple of years ago, and I had a strong pediatric population, and working with parents and working with young families on nutrition is super important, especially when we work with a lot of our minority patient populations or populations that are addressing poverty. We are lucky in TUSD to have amazing staff members that did the work and the background work to show the Medicaid rates of our students. And then because of that, we were able to get approval from the federal government to have free and reduced lunch for all of our schools. So we had a couple of schools that had the program in place universally, but now our entire district has free lunch and breakfast available to all students. So students don't have to show proof of income from their parents or any other kinds of hoops to jump through to get free and reduced lunch. And we have that available, breakfast and lunch, for any student that wants it. And that eliminated all of the school lunch debt that makes a lot of headlines. And so we're in a better place as a district thanks to the work of our amazing staff and leaders. And I'm really proud to have it was an easy decision. Of course, a no-brainer decision, but I was really proud that we can do that and support that this past winter to make our entire district free and reduced lunch. And part of our climate mitigation policy is coming before the governing board October 15th. Will address food. We know that food is a major cause of climate greenhouse gases and sustainability issues. And so if we have passed the framework that I'm hoping that will pass on October 15th, is going to include more organic meals and more plant-based meal options for our students, which will be healthier and hopefully more sustainable and climate friendly. So a lot of work to do on nutrition. I'm hoping in the second term to continue working with our leadership and food services to make sure that we implement this policy and have good nutritious options available for my kids as well as all 40,000 students in TUSD.
Okay, and Lillian Fox, you have the floor.
I think we have a great food program at TUSD. The Auditor General says that our meals cost more than is average for Arizona, and I think that's to the good. That's probably better nutrition, not incompetence at all. But the thing that bothers me a lot is Sadie Shaw made a motion that we increase funding for the schools. In last year's budget, 33 schools got zero money to buy books, media, and periodicals. 34 got $40, 3 got less than $100. So that's 70 schools out of 89 who did not have their libraries funded. On the other hand, the superintendent has $1,000 in his budget every single year to buy books, media, and periodicals for himself. The problem in TUSD has always been our administration is gold-plated. Every single year, the Auditor General says our administrative costs are extremely high. An example is the superintendent had last year over $18,000 in his personal budget to pay for out-of-state travel for himself. The district had budgeted over $900,000 for out-of-state travel, but they're not funding 70 of their schools for books and media and periodicals. It drives me crazy that we can't see this year's budget. These are all last year's budgets. Are you willing to increase funding for the libraries and the schools?
Well, thank you, Lynn, for bringing up libraries. And my origin story in terms of policy is really with libraries. First time I ever got involved in any kind of civic engagement as a young child was thanks to my mom. After she became a citizen here in America, she really started getting involved in our local community in the suburbs of Chicago and took me with her to the Friends of the Library meetings. And I remember sitting at that table, multiple tables, working with our community to really advocate for our local public library in Glendale Heights, Illinois, and volunteered for the library, did a whole summer program volunteering for the library. And so I got my whole origin story, my whole start of me in terms of my public advocacy and why I am elected to office and why I ran and became really engaged in politics and political advocacy really started with libraries. So I love libraries, and I take my kids to the external library on a regular basis to get books. I love to have infinite funding out there for all the different programs that really impact our students. The Budget Advisory Committee, which again, another committee that you can get involved with. We're looking for more members of our Budget Advisory Committee. So anybody who's listening, please let me know if you'd like to join that. We have some openings of that. But that's a committee that we created that's looking directly at certain issues in our district and coming up with evidence-based solutions to use our budget in a most effective way. We looked at classroom sizes. We looked at we looked at our DSEP program. We looked at our ESSER funded positions and what's making a difference. And we looked at a whole season. We spent looking at how to really address literacy in our district and what are the best ways to address literacy. And the most evidence-based ways, again, I mentioned it before, is going to be that small group instruction, an evidence-based curriculum, teacher training programs, and other things I haven't mentioned, like family engagement, which a lot of our schools is doing more on family engagement as well. We already have a deficit budget going into this year, and I love to figure out how to address that and meet the needs of our students. When you mentioned that there isn't any funding for our libraries, we have a lot of Title I money and other things going to libraries, a lot of outside agencies, like Susie mentioned with Literacy Connects, going to libraries. When my kids are bringing home library books, they're not from the 90s. There are updated library materials in our schools, thanks to other funding sources that might not be coming from M&O on that front. When you talk about administrative spending, we have the Auditor General reports and what we send back and forth with them. We peaked at 11% in administrative spending in 2017, if I remember the data correctly. And we're been steady at under 9%, and we have the lowest administrative spending in any school district in Pima County, and one of the lowest in the state. And so, we do pay our superintendent amount that's not the highest in the state, even though we have one of the largest districts in the state. And I stand by that. We're really putting our money into our schools, into our classrooms. We are higher in our classroom spending than we were a decade ago, and we'll continue to work on making sure we're addressing the needs in our classrooms in the years ahead.
Okay, we're going to have to move to the last question.
Dr. Shaw, I was wondering, I brought some personal hygiene products to Monzo because there are young girls who are starting their periods, who don't know what's going on probably, and they have a period closet at Tucson High. Can we voluntarily bring products like that to the schools? And is it possible for us to buy books and take them into our local schools' libraries so that they have more books, newer books? They've got good sales at Costco. What is the board's standing on voluntarily gifting things to a school library?
I think I want to speak to all the board members. I think we would definitely appreciate any donations to the schools, whether it's directly to the schools and the libraries or for the period products and other hygiene products. I'm not sure if it's best to go through the clothing banks or other places for some of those products. But I can follow up with you, Susie, offline and follow back up with the DGT on what the best way, if anybody does want to make donations, what the best way to do that can be. So I'll follow up with the team on that.
Let's give Dr. Shaw a nice appreciation, and thank you all for participating. There were great questions, great attentiveness, questions that I think we're going to have to do some more homework, right, to kind of figure things out. So, but really good questions and really good answer. Thank you for being with us, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great week. Keep doing all the great things you're doing. When we work, we win. When we fight, we win. So let's go out there and get it done.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.